We're making a scrap wood slant board using some short 2x4s, 1/2-inch plywood. I believe at one point this was a 2x2, but it's been cut down a few times. You could probably use many different size woods for this. I'll tell you about that when we get to it. A 1/4-inch piece of plywood for the bottom just to tie everything together a little bit better. Using this as my starting model / inspiration. This is a nice slant board I bought, professionally made. So I'm going to make one that is this angle and that is a little bit wider because it feels a little narrow when you use it. For reference, the box says the small angle is 26 degrees. Hold these up as a comparison and you can see they are pretty spot on their angles. This one measures 11 inches by 11 inches. Wanted to make this one a little bit wider, so I cut my board to 16 inches and kept this around 11. I think that this was already 11.5, so I just went with it. For cutting the 2x4s, set up the chop saw, miter saw, set it to a 30-degree angle. I think you could go plus or minus a little bit and it would still be pretty close. So this cut off there, very short. I pre-cut these so you don't have to watch me cut them. From the top, the high side measures about 5 3/4. Low side is about 5. You're gonna need 2 of those. I'm using this front board that I kind of notched out here to catch the front of the plywood. I'm sure there's other ways you can do this. Put the 1/4-inch plywood underneath just to connect it and make it one surface. I think putting that little piece of plywood underneath will just make it a little more sturdy. To get this cut out like this, I used a dado. I cut it back to leave a 1/4 inch of material here to catch. If you don't have a dado blade, you can use your saw. You can set up your fence. You can measure over where you want it to be. That way you keep the material you want and you can lower your blade. Of course, safety is always the most important thing. You want to be safe. If I didn't have that blade, of course, if I didn't have the dado blade, of course I would be here. I would run this through. I would have something knot my hands here to be careful. Pass it through. And then we would scoot this over. Pass it through again. And every time you pass it through, you'll be removing material. Of course, you don't want to be grabbing this. You want to have something you can grab and push this through carefully without putting your fingers there. Be safe. If you don't feel comfortable cutting this groove, find a different way to attach. We're going to use the glue and screw method, using the glue for the long-term adhesive bonding agent and the screws as our short-term, almost like a clamp that's going to stay there. I have these screws here. Number 6, 1 5/8. I had these for another project. They're just thin screws. Thought that would work well. Make sure to drill some pilot holes. Gonna zip it in 2 in the top here, 2 in the top here. These longer screws won't work well for the front unless you angle it, and it doesn't give me enough margin for error that I feel comfortable with. I will put a big thick bead of glue along the front, and I will use these small screws. Again, these are just screws I have from another project, and as you see, these will just barely kind of tip in and grab it, just enough for that glue to hopefully cure and hold. Just to keep it flush or recessed for my bit. Cut the small piece of plywood that it would match up relatively close to being able to have this front piece catch it, and then want this post to be on there, and then that post to be on there. Doesn't have to be exact, trying to get it like that. And we'll glue and screw the bottom, 2 on each post, 2 on each 2x4. Put a little glue and screw some very short screws on the front. Here's the finished piece. For your feet, put on some anti-slip tape. Did buy this off of Amazon. Have tried this multiple times. I like this. Works pretty good. Cheap, easy, DIY slant board. Enjoy.